Donald Trump, North Korea's Kim Jong-un a smart cookie. U.S. President Donald Trump has described North Korean leader Kim Jong-un as a pretty smart cookie. Speaking to CBS, he noted Mr. Kim had assumed power at a young age, despite dealing with some very tough people. Amid escalating tensions over North Korea's nuclear program, he said he had no idea whether Mr. Kim was sane. The North Korean leader had his uncle executed 2 years after he came to power, and is suspected of ordering the recent killing of his half-brother. President Trump, asked what he made of the North Korean leader, answered, "People are saying, is he sane? I have no idea. But he was a young man of 26 or 27. When his father died. He's dealing with obviously very tough people, in particular the generals and others. And at a very young age, he was able to assume power. A lot of people, I'm sure, tried to take that power away, whether it was his uncle or anybody else. And he was able to do it. So obviously, he's a pretty smart cookie." The interview on the Face the Nation show came after North Korea's second failed ballistic missile test in 2 weeks, in which a missile exploded shortly after it was launched on Saturday. When asked why the missiles keep blowing up, Mr. Trump said, "I'd rather not discuss it. We shouldn't be announcing all our moves," he said. "It is a chess game. I just don't want people to know what my thinking is." North Korea is believed to be continuing efforts to miniaturize nuclear warheads and fit them on long-range missiles capable of reaching the U.S. You may also be interested in: Trump misses life before presidency. North Korea crisis, why now? How mixed signals could spell disaster. Are North Korea's neighbors worried? Profile: Kim Jong-un, North Korea's supreme commander. Tensions in the region have increased lately, with both North and South Korea conducting military exercises. America sent warships to the region and began installing a controversial anti-missile system in South Korea earlier this week. On Sunday, an article from Pyongyang's state-run news agency KCNA urged the U.S. to ponder over the catastrophic consequences to be entailed by their foolish military provocation. North Korea has carried out repeated missile tests in recent months and is threatening to conduct its sixth nuclear test. President Trump said the U.S. was not going to be very happy if further tests were carried out. When asked whether this would mean military action, he said, "I don't know. I mean, we'll see." Mr. Trump said the Chinese President Xi Jinping, an ally of North Korea, was putting pressure on Mr. Kim to scale back his nuclear and military activities. "But so far, perhaps nothing's happened and perhaps it has," he said. He again hailed the ties he has been developing with China, a country he criticized heavily during his election campaign. "The relationship I have with China, it's been already acclaimed as being something very special, something very different than we've ever had," Mr. Trump said. When asked whether he would fulfill his campaign pledge to label China a currency manipulator, he said, "As soon as I got elected, they stopped," but implied he did not want to jeopardize Chinese cooperation on North Korea. North Korea is maybe more important than trade. Trade is very important. But massive warfare with millions, potentially millions of people being killed? That, as we would say, trumps trade. Also in the interview, on the healthcare bill he is negotiating, he said pre-existing conditions would be fully covered and premiums would be lower. On alleged Russian election hacking, "I'll go along with Russia. Could have been China, could have been a lot of different groups." On releasing his tax return, he said he would make a decision when the current audit was complete, adding, "I have a very big tax return." On making legislation, the rules in Congress and in particular the rules in the Senate are unbelievably archaic and slow-moving. And in many cases, unfair. In many cases, you're forced to make deals that are not the deal you'd make. On being president, it's something that I really love and I think I've done a very good job at it. It's a tough job. But I've had a lot of tough jobs. I've had things that were tougher. North Korea warns of catastrophic consequences. USS Carl Vinson strike group carries out exercises with South Korean Navy as North's media warns stop running wild. South Korea and the United States wrapped up their annual large-scale military drills on Sunday but continued a separate joint naval exercise that has triggered the threat of nuclear war from North Korea. The USS Carl Vinson aircraft carrier group arrived in waters near the Korean peninsula and began exercises with the South Korean Navy late on Saturday. The South Korean Navy declined to say when the exercises would be completed. North Korea has threatened to sink the American Armada. Tensions on the Korean peninsula have been running sky-high for weeks, with signs the North might be preparing a sixth nuclear weapon test, and with Washington refusing to rule out a military strike in response. The massive full-legal military exercises, which the Defense Ministry in Seoul said ended as scheduled on Sunday, involved about 20,000 South Korean and 10,000 U.S. troops. Another annual joint maneuver known as Key Resolve ended last month. Both play out scenarios for a conflict with North Korea, but Seoul and Washington insist they are purely defensive in nature. Pyongyang says the drills are provocative plans for an invasion or a decapitation strike against the North Korean leadership. A North Korean state-run newspaper on Sunday warned of catastrophic consequences, accusing the USS Carl Vinson strike force of rehearsing a preemptive attack on the North in a special operation. This has pushed the tense situation on the Korean peninsula to an unpredictable dangerous phase, said the Minjuchuseon in a commentary. The enemies have to know that military threat and blackmail with the mobilization of nuclear carriers and nuclear submarines cannot work on the DPRK, it said, using the acronym for the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. The U.S. and the puppet group of traitors have to ponder over the catastrophic consequences to be entailed by their foolish military provocation, and stop running wild. U.S. President Donald Trump has warned of a possible major conflict after Pyongyang carried out a series of failed missile tests, including one on Saturday. North Korean ballistic missile tests are banned by the United Nations because they are seen as part of Pyongyang's push for a nuclear-tipped weapon that can hit the U.S. mainland. Trump said North Korean leader Kim Jong-un will eventually develop better missiles, and we can't allow it to happen. In a taped interview broadcast Sunday on U.S. network CBS, the president would not discuss the possibility of military action, saying, "It is a chess game. I just don't want people to know what my thinking is." Trump will speak with the leaders of Singapore and Thailand on Sunday over the potential for nuclear and massive destruction in Asia, because of the situation with North Korea, White House Chief of Staff Reince Priebus said. "There is nothing right now facing this country and facing the region that is a bigger threat than what is happening in North Korea," he said. The US and South Korea also started installing a missile defense system that is supposed to be partially operational within days. The Terminal High Altitude Area Defense System, or THAAD, is controversial in South Korea. Residents in the village of Sungj, where the missile system is being deployed, scuffled with police on Sunday. Trump raised eyebrows in South Korea last week when he said would make Seoul pay $1 billion for the missile system. His national security advisor, H.R. McMaster, said on Sunday the matter is subject to negotiation. Caitlyn Jenner just threatened the president, Trump stunned by these two words. "I thought we were done with the whole Bruce, Caitlyn Jenner thing. Silly me." After having her transformation jammed down our throats a couple years ago, conservatives everywhere hoped that perhaps Jenner would simply take her money and recede into the shadows. That's not what liberals do, though. They find ways to keep complaining, which they call fighting, and even more annoyingly, they find ways to keep attacking Republicans on every possible issue. They believe in equal rights, provided they get preferential treatment. They believe in freedom of speech, provided you're saying what they want you to say. And unfortunately, these enemies of America have no off switch. Now, Jenner has issued a very personal threat to President Donald Trump, and it basically says, "You're going to toe the progressive line or you're going to have to deal with me." Oh really? As Breitbart reports, citing Jenner's recent 2020 interview, Caitlyn Jenner has issued a warning to President Donald Trump and the Republican Party: "Treat the LGBT community unfairly, and you'll have to deal with me." The former Olympic gold medalist turned reality TV star, formerly known as Bruce Jenner, challenged the president in a 2020 interview with Diane Sawyer set to air Friday night. Jenner told Sawyer that what the LGBT community needs from Republican legislators is federal guidance, including on transgender service in the military. Strangely, Jenner has always said he's more conservative than people think, and he supports the Constitution. He even supported the Trump campaign last year at one point. But of course, liberals all fall back into position at one point or another. The instant Trump lifted federal guidelines for transgender bathroom use, Jenner went ballistic and called the decision a disaster. Now he steps on Twitter and says flat out, "You made a promise to protect the LGBTQ community. Call me. I'm just going to assume he isn't serious." Contrary to popular leftist belief, the President of the United States doesn't have to consult liberals about everything. Lefties don't have the authority to sign off on everything. No, they don't. In fact, they never did, which is precisely why they're so ticked off now. Their liberal Gestapo doesn't have the control it once had, and they vent their frustration by resorting to thug tactics. Know what these people really want? What's happening in Venezuela right now? Anybody want to take a trip down there and see how well socialism is working? OMG. Right after Trump called out CNN at his rally, watch all hell break loose. President Trump held a rally in Pennsylvania last night to celebrate his 100th day in office. He held this rally for the same night as the White House Correspondents' Dinner, where the media gathered to trash him. But the mainstream media still had to broadcast Trump's event on live TV, so he took full advantage of it. Trump took the opportunity to blast the media, and then all hell broke loose. Hollywood actors and Washington media are consoling each other in a hotel ballroom in our nation's capital right now. And I could not possibly be more thrilled than to be more than 100 miles away from Washington's swamp, spending my evening with all of you. A much larger crowd, and much better people. Right after he said this, the entire crowd, tens of thousands of people started chanting "CNN sucks" while it was being broadcasted live on CNN. This even surprised President Trump. Watch this amazing moment, then share on Facebook if you have already boycotted CNN.